the IMF is requiring that the budget deficit go from its current level of 3% to 1.5%, and then to 0 over the next few years. And that there's a couple of problems with that. And the interesting question is, why does the IMF care? If the IMF is lending dollars and refinancing them and needs to be paid back in dollars, why does it care what the budget deficit is? Because that does not affect Argentina's ability to pay back dollars to the IMF. So that's my overall look. When I step back and take a look at the whole picture, this doesn't make any sense for the IMF to be doing that. And so, if anything, I should be questioning the IMF and saying, like, why do you care what the budget deficit is? Why do you care what inflation is? Why do you care about anything except minimizing unemployment and optimizing real output? Because that real output is what gets traded for foreign goods at market prices, regardless of what the budget deficit is, regardless of what the inflation rate is, regardless of what the level of the peso is. Those real goods and services get traded for others, and or sold for dollars in the foreign exchange markets, in the foreign markets. And when you're selling goods from Argentina in foreign markets, let's say it's wheat, for example, you get the world price of wheat in dollars or in euro, and they don't care what whoever's buying your exports doesn't care what the value of the peso is. They don't care what your budget deficit is. Okay, they just care how much wheat you have for sale and the fact that you're willing to sell it at global prices. And so for the IMF to make these kinds of requirements makes me question why they're doing it. It makes me question whether they understand how to, what to do to ensure that their loans get paid. All right, so keeping that in mind, let's just move on to what they've actually done. So what the public debt is, what the 3% deficit is every year the government spends a certain amount of pesos. Some of those get used to pay taxes, and the rest don't. And so the economy works and earns and gets paid more than enough pesos that it needs to pay taxes, federal taxes, central government taxes that year. And those pesos are saved in one of two forms. They're actual cash, paper notes, or they're saved in accounts at the central bank, which in the United States, we call them reserve accounts and securities accounts. I'm not sure what you call them there. Those peso accounts at the central bank, they may be called reserve accounts and securities accounts. Reserve accounts are the cash balances that are used for immediate transactions, and the securities accounts are the time deposits, normally called treasury securities, treasury bonds. And so that annual deficit of 3% adds that much to the total public debt. The total public debt are all the pesos the government has spent that haven't yet used to pay taxes. There have been a lot of pesos spent over the years. Some of them have been used to pay taxes. The rest are still out there, still in the street in the form of cash, reserves, or securities, which are accounts at the central bank. And the public debt constitutes the net money supply in the economy. It's the financial equity that supports the entire credit structure. Okay, and it's not something you pay back or don't pay back. The securities, when they mature, those pesos are shifted back to the reserve accounts, to the transaction accounts. If somebody wants to buy new securities, pesos are shifted from transaction accounts to securities accounts. So those pesos are simply shifted back and forth between transactions accounts and savings accounts, and there's no paying it back. It's just not an applicable concept for what's going on operationally. So given that, the 3% annual deficit is the net addition to the money supply, the net money supply in the economy. It's the net spending of the government, which will remain outstanding and add to the total peso net financial assets of the economy. So the question is, look, in a growing economy, you presumably, in general, you would expect to have a growing money supply. Your population's growing, your businesses are growing, your output's growing. And with inflation, you definitely have to have a growing money supply in nominal terms. Otherwise, you have a money shortage where if prices were to double, for example, then people need twice as much money to walk around with in their pockets. Corporations need twice as much cash on their balance sheet. Merchants need twice as much cash to make change and to stock inventories, which now cost twice as much. So when prices double, the cash needs in the economy approximately double. And if the IMF is only allowing them to increase by 3%, you're putting a squeeze on the economy for financial assets. And that, all else equal, which it's not, but all else equal, you're going to be creating a lot of unemployment, a recession, and a drop in real output. When you have a drop in real output, you have fewer things to trade in the global markets in order to earn foreign exchange, and you're less able to service the IMF debt. So back to my first point, makes no sense to me that the IMF would impose policies on Argentina that will ultimately make it more difficult for you to pay back the money that you owe them.